Hi, Rob here from Brisbane, Australia. We're doing a 7,000 kilometre road trip in a Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. And after the first couple of days of driving from the Gold Coast to Cairns, we were ready for a bit of a break. So we based ourselves in Cairns and did some touristy things, some social things. It was great. On the first day trip, we went to Barron Gorge and then up into the Atherton Tablelands, through Kuranda and all the way out to Ravenshoe. That day was around 300 kilometres of driving, so we, topped up, filled up before we left, and had enough to get back home again. The second day we went north to Mossman Gorge and also to Port Douglas. Bit shorter day that one, but had a nice look around. So yeah, stay to the end and see what we're up to next. So the Cairns area is the gateway to the Great Barrier Reef, and there's lots of ways to experience the reef, going out by boat, and some people are lucky enough to go for a flight over it in a helicopter. And there's a couple of helicopters here on the Cairns foreshore on the day. Here we are at Windy Hill, near Ravenshoe on the Atherton Tablelands. The early wind farms in Queensland, put in place by the state government, owned by some of our large electricity generation companies. More recently been spun out into a renewable energy company by the state government called CleanCo. So I'd like to introduce you to Brian, a mate of mine. He's one of the co-drivers on this EV road trip, and he's a retired software engineer that I worked with many years ago, and we've been mates ever since. So Brian, why do you think are the factors that are important for this transition to the EV future?
Well, I guess I'd go back to that cartoon that we were talking about last night on climate change, where the guy says, but what if we do all these things and climate change is not a real thing, it's fake. And of course, the guy doing the presentation in this cartoon had a number of talking points on there, and you've got all sorts of things like pollution, and pollution covers getting the stuff out of the ground, the Deepwater Horizon situation and the one in the Timor Gap before that. But to me, one of the top thing on this guy talking points was independence of energy. You're not relying on the house of salt to provide your energy needs, and so to me that means you get rid of half of the issues in the Middle East. We don't have to send people to the Middle East to patrol the Straits of Hormuz, and all sorts of other things like that. So I think that is a really significant thing. Right at this point in time, we don't have sort of what's required. The 90 days of fuel needs, and if we weren't so heavily dependent on petroleum products, then that just becomes a non-issue.
Sure, okay. And on the way north to Mossman Gorge, we were lucky enough to pull into a lookout and spot a couple of hang gliders gracefully gliding above the ocean. What a great thing to be able to do in a beautiful part of the world. And this is Mossman Gorge, slightly north of Cairns, an indigenous area in a national park. A great place, people are having a lovely swim. It'll be very attractive in summer to come here and cool off. And it'll be really spectacular when it floods. Mossman Gorge had many kilometres of walking tracks, We were only there for a relatively short time and only got to sample a small portion of it, but what a great place to visit, and hardly recommended if you're up this way. This is the Mossman Gorge car park, and it looks like they're installing some EV charging infrastructure here. It's still early days, just got some cables there, but future visitors will have a place to recharge. And the visitor centre has quite a bit of solar PV on the roof, which is great to see. So EV charging here will at least partially be powered by the local solar array. And on the way home we popped into Port Douglas. We had a look at a lookout and of course the harbour. Saw some of the nice boats hanging out there. So that about wraps it up. Tomorrow morning we're heading south again towards the Gold Coast over a few days this time. Not sure how far we'll get tomorrow, but tune in and find out.